Welcome to the program. It didn't take long, took about a little over 10 months into Donald Trump's presidency, but officially now, Donald Trump's FCC is going to try to kill net neutrality. And for years, I've been telling you that if we want to think about the most important macro political issues, no matter what micro issue is most important to you, we have to be thinking about money in politics. And that really has three components, right? One is how elections are financed and the specifics of laws like Citizens United. Number two is media coverage of politics, which directly relates to money in politics. So it's sort of a subsection of that. And number three is net neutrality, which somewhat could even the playing field in order to have a less disadvantageous situation to the average internet user and news consumer and purveyor of independent media, like the David Pakman show. And we knew that when Donald Trump selected Ajit Pai, a former lawyer for Verizon, to run the FCC, we knew that eventually they would go for a full-out attempt at killing net neutrality regulations that were passed during President Obama's presidency, and the time has come. And they're moving ahead with that. And left alone, it's going to happen, right? There's really no other way to say it. It will be a 3-2 vote in favor of scrapping net neutrality, left untouched. There is no question about that whatsoever. And if and when these rules go away, and it increasingly seems that it's a matter of when rather than if, although I will address that a little bit later on in the program, terrible things are going to happen. Internet service providers will be able to create internet slow lanes and fast lanes. They can't do that now based on the regulations that were passed under President Obama. And it is a hugely anti-democratic thing to have these internet slow lanes and fast lanes created. Big service providers like Netflix, for example, could be charged way more if they want internet customers to have fast access to their platform. So, for example, Time Warner owns HBO, and Time Warner is also a cable and internet provider. Time Warner knows that some people are choosing Netflix over HBO, or Netflix through the internet instead of having cable TV at all, right? Netflix is connected to cord cutting, and Time Warner doesn't want people cutting their cable cord. So what Time Warner could do if net neutrality is repealed is, number one, slow down access to Netflix to make it more annoying to the end user, which might make some people say, you know what? I don't want to deal with pixelated images and rebuffering when watching Netflix. I guess maybe instead I'll get cable or buy HBO or something like that. And number two, what Time Warner can do or could do, will be able to do if and when net neutrality is repealed, is that they can say to Netflix, hey, we'll give your customers access to Netflix as smoothly as we give our customers access to HBO, but you've got to pay us a huge amount of money to get Netflix functioning at normal speed. And more than likely, Netflix would then increase its rates and you would end up paying for that additional expense that is levied by Time Warner or whoever it is that wants to do it. It will be passed along to you, and thus it will be the consumer who ends up paying more to maintain the same, sometimes mediocre access to some of these content platforms that you like and might even be taken for granted at this time. So absolute and total disaster. And I don't even have to mention, by the way, when you look at the connections between internet service providers and news media, Comcast ownership of MSNBC, pick your example, right? Whatever example you want to talk about, I don't even have to get into how this would be disastrous potentially for purveyors of independent media like the David Pakman show and so many others that my guess is many of the people in our audience value and understand the importance of. You could have bundled websites. If you've ever tried to access Wi-Fi on an airplane, you might see that you might get for $5, you can get in-flight Wi-Fi to check your email. But for $10, you can go to social media websites like Facebook and Twitter. And if you pay $15 for in-flight Wi-Fi during your flight, you can watch videos on YouTube or access your Netflix account, for example, right? Those aren't exact prices, but that's the idea. But hey, you're on an airplane. It's a little bit of a different situation. It's just a few hours. It's not your day-to-day interaction with the internet. That could become the internet status quo if net neutrality regulations are repealed. And the even sicker part of it is that consumers want net neutrality, or most consumers who might not understand net neutrality by that name, if you ask them, are you in favor of or against this provision that is part of net neutrality or that provision? Overwhelmingly, consumers are in favor of this. It is huge businesses and lobbyists that are against net neutrality regulations. A ton of pro-net neutrality comments have flooded into the FCC, and the FCC is effectively ignoring them, moving forward with this proposal to repeal net neutrality. And the FCC is also citing that there have been tons of consumer comments against net neutrality, but it increasingly appears that a huge portion of the so-called consumer comments in opposition to net neutrality regulations were fake. Just straight up fake. There's a data scientist named Jeff Cow who has used language processing techniques to analyze all of the so-called anti-net neutrality comments that were received. And he has determined that at least 1.3 million of them were straight up fake, and that endless more comments are suspicious based on the language that was there. They appear to have been sort of a combination of computer-generated AstroTurf and possibly even more mischievous type of activity. So do not be tricked, right? I guess there's really no better word than the one I used. The AstroTurf around anti-net neutrality is mostly bogus. Case in point, go to our YouTube channel and check out this interview I did years ago with a woman named Crystal High, who was pitched to us as a great speaker on net neutrality, and it turned out that she was actually a paid shill for the for the cable industry lobby. And I called her out during the interview. It's an extraordinary thing that happens. Crystal High is her name. You can check that out, and just to get a sense of the depths and extent to which we are seeing anti-net neutrality AstroTurf. But back to the present situation. This is an emergency crisis situation. What can you do? I don't know. I don't want to be naive. I don't know that we can really do anything. And I don't know that what I'm about to tell you will change the outcome of this attempted net neutrality repeal. But you can go to battleforthenet.com. They have a form you can fill out that will send a letter to your representatives telling them that you object to this, that you are against this. I encourage you to also go to whoismyrepresentative.com or .net, I never remember. Put in your information and call every single one of the elected officials that is listed for you, members of the House of Representatives, senator. If you want to call the governor, want to call your local state rep or state senator, by all means do it. And then also on December 7th, there are going to be protests outside of Verizon stores, and you can go to verizonprotest.com to find out more about that. This is bad. This is really, really bad, and this is a systemic threat to so many forms of media, of speech, and it is yet again going along with, we're going to talk about taxes next, in conjunction with how the Trump Republican tax plan is a major handout to the richest and to corporations. The attempted repeal and what might be the successful repeal of net neutrality is exactly the same thing, a handout to particularly corporations and also to the rich people in control of those corporations as a way to make even more money off of you, the average person. So battleforthenet.com and verizonprotests.com. The video you just finished watching was made possible by you through the membership program. You can sign up for membership at davidpakman.com/membership. We are viewer-supported independent media. You can use the coupon code IVOTED17 for a 40% discount off of your membership.